A Democratic congressman is bailing on the party. He might be moving over to the GOP. And former mayor, now candidate Michael Bloomberg, is looking to his former cohort, city mayors, to give him the boost that he needs in the campaign.
City mayors that have benefited from his funding, we might add. We're back with Andrew Feldman, Democratic strategist, and Holly Turner, Republican strategist. And let's start with Bloomberg. Look, I don't think the guy is going to be the nominee. But anyone who has limitless amounts of money is going to have an impact. We already see him jumping up to 4 and 5% in the polls. He's hurt Pete in particular, but he could draw from essentially any of the candidates except for Bernie Sanders. But now, look at what's going on. Not only is his own media outlet not going to cover him critically, but the mayors who are endorsing his campaign are people that have benefited financially from his support, his donations, et cetera. I mean, it's just like gross how this is on display, Andrew.
It is, absolutely. And look, this is what this means is it's not just about him having donors, right? Him taking money from other people. His money influences the race in other ways.
Right.
The fact that he has so much money that he's dealt out over the years when he was not just with his outside groups, but when he was mayor of New York, right? He didn't take contributions in New York either, but his overarching large sums of money had influence and played out in other ways. To me, though, the biggest headline of this morning on Michael Bloomberg is what broke last night in ABC News, where they say Bloomberg's sexist remarks fostered a company culture that degraded women and lawsuits. This guy should be disqualified. He has no business being in the Democratic primary, and he has no business trying to be an advocate for women or any of the diverse coalition within the party.
Yeah, I saw that report as well. This is from ABC News. Allegedly just a lot of sexist behavior from Michael Bloomberg within his corporation. It's crazy. I mean, if you look at this, Holly, which is that he basically built, like Tom Steyer, these quasi-political organizations that they just decided, they're like, you know what? We're not going to make this philanthropy anymore. We're just going to weaponize it. And really goes to show about how so many of these nonprofit organizations are political organizations for a lot of these billionaires. That's what it is. They have so much influence.
Yeah, they are. And the law allows for them to be that way. And that's fine. But is it really making a difference? To your point, it does, knock down some other candidates, maybe like Mayor Pete, but it's not. Tom Steyer and Bloomberg are not going to win the nomination due to that. And so it's
it's like, when you have a mayor of a town who's got all this money from Michael Bloomberg, and he goes and endorses Michael Bloomberg because he went to a city roundtable or whatever, funded by the Bloomberg Foundation.
Voters see through it.
I think they do see through
it. And kudos to the American voters because they're not going to fall for that. And I just think it's really interesting, though, that in the Republican primary, Donald Trump, candidate Donald Trump at the time, he was writing big checks funding his own campaign, and somehow that worked well. Like, voters were cool with that, but it's just not. It's not authentic here. It just seems different.
It's because he ran against the system and said, "I already bought all these people, so I know how."
Well, also he was not funding political efforts.
Yeah, exactly.
So to be honest with you, I think Tom Steyer and Michael Bloomberg are detrimental to the party being in this race because they did real good, being Next Gen with Tom Steyer, Every Town, Moms Demand Action, et cetera, with Michael Bloomberg. But guess what? They have taken their focus off of that. They could be spending this $100 million each into supporting the party in other ways.
Let me ask you this question. It's a little controversial idea, but Bloomberg, because of the way that the DNC debate criteria is, you have to get a certain number of grassroots donations. He said, I'm not taking any donations, so he's not going to meet the criteria. Now, a lot of candidates are doing everything they can to get on that stage. For him, on the other hand, I want to see him up there. It seems like a way of him escaping accountability, that he doesn't have to be on that stage answering questions from the moderators, having to respond from attacks from his fellow candidates. Many of them, Warren and Sanders have been coming after him, and he doesn't have to face those attacks head on. I would like to see him on the stage having to be held to account.
Yeah, it's the DNC trying to fix last cycle's problems, but we got a whole new set of problems this cycle, and they didn't think about that being the case, but it's true. He's not going to face the scrutiny, and his fellow candidates should want him up there. They should want him.
Can you think of a better foil for Bernie?
They do, and they do want him.
Yeah, they should.
Look, Tom Perez was just in a big profile in the New York Times, and he is in between a rock and a hard place on everything, right?
I really feel bad for him.
Well, neither do I. But the point is, he can't win on this debate issue. Yeah. Absolutely, Michael Bloomberg should be on that stage. But guess what? If Michael Bloomberg's on that stage, shouldn't Cory Booker and Julian Castro and everyone else who's still in the race? So it's a really hard situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it is tough. At the same time, what we're watching, this is a crazy story, which is that Jeff Van Drew, he's a Democrat from he was a Democrat from New Jersey. Apparently, he's met with President Trump. He says he's going to be switching over to becoming a Republican, Andrew. He was one of the few who had voted against the articles of impeachment. What do you make of all this? Because it does demonstrate, I mean, he was one of the most vocal Trump, well, I think he's a Democrat who won a Republican Trump district. President still overwhelmingly supported there. Does it show that there is no room for an anti-impeachment vote within the Democratic primary? I think the party. I think he might be the only one publicly to say so. But we have had reports there are a lot of still on the shelf.
Well, he is one of two that opposed.
They straight up opposed the investigation.
Right? But to me, this is a sign that Jeff Drew cannot win re-election in that district. He's losing support from Democrats. He's losing support from primary challenge. And he has no business being in our party. And guess what? I think he's going to lose election in November 2020. Let him switch parties.
Here's my thing, Andrew, also with this. I mean, number one, Steyer's point I think is well taken, which is that Democrats think this impeachment thing is going great and grand for them. And I think that the evidence is mixed at best on that front. But second of all, who always gets asked about whether you're really loyal to the party? It's never these centrist, moderate, corporatist type. It's always the progressives. Bernie Sanders, do you promise you're going to back the nominee?
Right.
Do you promise you're going to support? Do you promise that you're really with the party? The scrutiny is never applied to these guys. And by the way, the DCCC intervened in this primary to get this guy in office when there was a more progressive candidate who would still be sticking with the party right now. So I find it outrageous that he would switch sides and that we don't give any of the same scrutiny to these centrist, corporatist, sellout type Democrats.
I think that's funny.
That's very funny. It's just interesting to me that the Democrat Party as a whole is not just, I mean, it used to just be a numbers game. How many seats can we get, right? Even if everybody has a little bit of a different point of view, even on important issues like impeachment, as long as they have a D by their name, that was kind of the goal. And now it's not. I mean, it's like, you vote with the party or you're out, and they would rather lose this seat to a Republican.
We're not going to lose
than
this
give. But you just said that he could lose in November.
Let's be clear, as a Republican, he's going to run as a Republican.
This guy removed himself.
Right, correct. He's selling out himself.
That's not going to happen.
I do think it's a good. You know what? I think it's a good thing to push people out. It's like Justin Amash. I'm like, all right, get out, go.
See, that's how I feel too.
That's how I feel.
And here's where we've applied disproportionately the purity test in the Democratic parties on cultural issues, and then we've let anything go on economics. You want to sell us out to the highest bidder? Go ahead. You're welcome here in the party. That's the issue I have. If we're going to have purity tests, I want it to be on you are standing with working people and you are not selling us out to corporations. That's the purity test I want to see. If you're not down with that, get out. Go be a Republican.
That's the real point. It's funny too because they did the same thing to Trump, right? They did the same thing to Trump. Will you raise your hand and commit to? And he was like, no. I thought that was
very Crystal. It's interesting you say that though. Because if you look at Dan Lipinski in Illinois, he's faced, but he is, I think, what Crystal would argue, someone who's for working people. He's someone who has the endorsements of labor and has for a long time. But then on some other key issues, namely abortion, he's not with the party. So, but you know what? He's someone who is continuing facing a primary from a more progressive that he may lose out.
Look, I support all of that. None of these people are entitled to their seats just because they hold them. So I'm all for primary challenges. I'm all for people trying to make sure that all of these people are held to account. And Mr. Van Drew, go do whatever you want.
Mr. Van Drew is selling out because he's getting scrutiny. That's what's happening.
Well, we'll see. All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Tomorrow on Rising, the executive director of Justice Democrats is going to be here to talk about 2020.
How appropriate, given the conversation we just had. And of course, Team Rising will be here as well. Everybody have a fabulous day. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.